Hello all you freedom-loving people. Layoffs are looming as the federal government shutdown continues. Operation Twin Shield in the Twin Cities found that nearly 50% of inhabitants were engaged in some form of immigration fraud, and Hamas's timeline is ticking down. Okay, let's get into it. The White House officially declared a government shutdown at midnight last night after the Senate failed to pass a GOP-backed spending bill. The Senate's 55-45 vote in favor of advancing the package failed to reach the chamber's 60-vote threshold to overcome a filibuster and proceed with debate on the bill. 3 members of the Democratic caucus crossed the aisle and voted with Republicans. They are Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, Senator Angus King, and Senator Lisa Murkowski, who voted against the GOP funding bill, but she flipped her vote in favor of the measure. Senator Rand Paul broke with his party and he voted against the funding bill. Democrats also tried to advance their own counter-proposal, but that bill was similarly blocked by Senate Republicans by a vote of 47-53. Both parties indicated that they did not want a government shutdown, but simultaneously blamed each other for the outcome. Republicans are demanding only a short-term extension of the current budget to buy time to complete formal appropriations for the fiscal year 2026. Democrats, however, refuse to support any proposal that does not include healthcare reform. Both sides believe that public opinion is on their side. The Democratic Party insists on repealing certain healthcare provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and they demand a permanent extension of enhanced subsidies under the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, that were implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic. But Republicans criticized the Democratic proposal as adding an extra $1.5 trillion in spending. President Trump had warned that the government might take irreversible measures during the shutdown, including mass layoffs. Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut countered that President Trump would push for layoffs regardless of whether the government shuts down or not. However, he predicted that the two parties will ultimately reach a major compromise on healthcare issues. South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds also believes that extending Obamacare subsidies should not encounter significant resistance from either party, but the current impasse stems from a lack of political trust between the parties. Representative Rosa DeLauro told the Epoch Times that she does not believe Republicans would genuinely negotiate healthcare issues during the normal appropriations process. She cited the failed bipartisan agreement of 2023, and she emphasized that there's no trust. Republicans, however, insist that complex healthcare disputes should not be bundled into short-term funding bills, since this only serves to further complicate negotiations. And today, hours into the government shutdown, the Senate again blocked a pair of rival stopgap bills to fund the government. The Senate first rejected a Democrat-led proposal with a 47-53 vote. That Democrat-led proposal would have kept the government open through October 31st, and it would have rolled back GOP Medicaid cuts and extended Obamacare subsidies. During a press conference, House Speaker Mike Johnson reacted to that proposal. Johnson said, "They wanted us to add over $1.5 trillion in new federal spending, paid for, of course, by hardworking American taxpayers, simply for funding the government and by current spending levels. We are not going to do that. We can't do that. We won't do it." Then the Senate rejected the 24-page House-passed GOP bill with a 55-45 vote. That GOP bill would have kept the government running for 7 weeks, and it would have boosted security for Congress, the White House, and even the Supreme Court. Now, with the shutdown, the law requires that agencies suspend or discharge their non-accepted employees. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that roughly 750,000 federal employees could be furloughed each day of the shutdown. In a press conference today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that the layoffs are coming very soon.
I'm just trying to clarify the timing of these potential layoffs to federal workers. You said imminent. The vice president seemed to say in a couple of days. It looks like Russ Vought maybe said in 2 days. When would these layoffs begin?
2 days, imminent, very soon. You will expect more announcements right now.
Is it just unclear, or are you waiting?
No, it's not unclear. All of those things are very synonymous with one another. These rifts are unfortunately going to happen very soon. There are unfortunate consequences to a government shutdown, and the federal government is not receiving any cash at the moment, and so the Office of Management and Budget has been tasked with looking over the receipts and looking over the budget of the entire federal bureaucracy, and as the Vice President said, determining what needs to continue to go out the door and what can we continue to keep running, and what unfortunately is going to have to come to an end. So those decisions are being made, and unfortunately layoffs are very likely, as the Vice President just said, going to be a part of that.
Except that employees who work to protect life and property will stay on the job, but they don't get paid until after the shutdown ends. All departments get some freedom to choose which services to freeze and which to maintain during the shutdown. FBI investigators, CIA officers, air traffic controllers, and agents who work at airport checkpoints will keep working. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed on X that DHS law enforcement officers would continue to work during the shutdown. Also, Immigration and Custom Enforcement officials said that border and immigration enforcement will not be affected. On X, ICE denied the rumors and wrote that immigration laws aren't changing. Border enforcement stays tough and crossing illegally is still a crime. Joining the press conference today, Vice President J.D. Vance stated he's not sure how long the shutdown will last, but he said that it's likely not going to be that long.
Is this going to be a long shutdown?
You know, I don't know. I can't predict what congressional Democrats are going to do, Peter, but I actually don't think it's going to be that long of a shutdown. This is a pure guess from the Vice President of the United States because I think you already saw some evidence that moderate Democrats are cracking a little bit. They understand the fundamental illogic of this. Look, for years, every single one of us, we can remember Barack Obama on the White House lawn. We can remember Chuck Schumer. We can remember, Nancy Pelosi for years. In Chuck Schumer's case, for literally decades, we've heard them say, you don't shut the government down over a policy disagreement. The entire Democratic Party, the political leadership, not every Democrat nationwide, but the political leadership of their party has got it into their heads that the only way to be compassionate is to be compassionate to illegal aliens rather than American citizens. If you go back to what Bill Clinton was saying, even Barack Obama in some cases, what he was saying about illegal immigration 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would put them on the MAGA right based purely on their rhetoric around illegal immigration. So I don't know why they've gone so far to the left. I think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for them politically. But our principle, all I can do is speak for the president that I serve and the country, the administration that I serve right now. We believe that the American people's government exists for the American people. That means the people who have the legal right to be here, and that's why we're fighting to reopen the government. And unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting to shut it down for the benefit of illegal aliens.
Yesterday, President Trump urged Hamas to accept the Gaza peace plan within 3 to 4 days. President Trump said at the White House, Hamas is either going to do it or not, and if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end. When asked if there was room for negotiations on the proposal, President Trump replied, not much. Hamas stated it will review the proposal in good faith and respond. We mentioned on Monday that the new peace plan stipulates an immediate ceasefire between both sides, with Hamas releasing all detained hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Israel would withdraw from Gaza in phases, disarm Hamas, and establish a transnational government led by international institutions. Many elements of this proposal have already been incorporated into numerous ceasefire agreements put forward over the past 2 years, yet Hamas keeps changing its mind, agreeing one moment, then reneging shortly afterwards. Since the outbreak of the war, Hamas has insisted on Israel's complete withdrawal from Gaza in exchange for the release of the remaining hostages. However, while the group has expressed willingness to relinquish administrative authority, it has consistently refused to disarm. Hamas now faces immense pressure to accept the plan, with the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Egypt all welcoming the initiative. Netanyahu also faces mounting domestic pressure to end the conflict. However, if he makes too many concessions to secure a peace agreement, his governing coalition risks collapse. Qatar stated it is seriously studying President Trump's peace plan. Prior to this, Qatar accepted Israel's apology for the attack on Doha, and Qatar reaffirms its willingness to continue serving as a mediator. President Trump recently issued an executive order pledging U.S. defense of Qatar, declaring any assault on the Gulf state a direct threat to American security. The order recognizes Qatar's role as a key strategic partner in the Middle East, including its hosting of U.S. forces, supporting regional security efforts, and acting as a key diplomatic intermediary. And for Gaza, all signs indicate if this peace agreement falls through due to Hamas's refusal, President Trump would spare no effort in providing all necessary support to assist Israel in its military operations until Hamas's influence is completely eradicated. If the Gaza conflict truly concludes in this manner, then Hamas's rule in Gaza will be consigned to history once and for all. New developments have emerged in the case of the superintendent of the Des Moines Public Schools in Iowa, who was arrested by ICE last Friday. According to the official website for the Maryland State Board of Elections, the illegal alien Ian Andre Roberts has an active voter status, and he is registered as a Democrat in Maryland. On Monday, Maryland House Republican Matt Morgan stated that Roberts' voter registration status means that he remains eligible to vote in all federal, state, and local elections, despite not being a U.S. citizen and likely not residing in Maryland for the past decade. Morgan explained that there is nothing in Maryland law allowing for non-citizens to be registered to vote in federal or state elections, even if Roberts were still a legal resident. Republicans in the Maryland House of Delegates Freedom Caucus are currently demanding that the Maryland State Board of Elections provide an explanation for the gaping holes in the state's election integrity system. Morgan asked in the letter, if illegal aliens are not allowed to vote, why would they be on the voter rolls in the first place, and how would that enhance immigration enforcement? I don't know, but that's the excuse that they wrote to the DOJ. It's ridiculous. Everyone reasonable wants a safe and secure election. Morgan stated that Roberts' case was perplexing, but he feared that this might only be the tip of the iceberg. The issue of undocumented immigrants in Maryland's voter registration system could be far more widespread. At the same time, federal authorities in Minnesota exposed another scandal in the immigration system. Yesterday, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS, announced that nearly half of all immigrants in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities were found to have committed some form of immigration fraud. The USCIS, backed by ICE, ran an operation called Twin Shield. The operation began on September 13th and concluded this week. The USCIS visited 1,000 homes across the Twin Cities and found nearly 50% of those inhabitants were engaged in some form of immigration fraud. Officials said that the Twin Cities were picked because data showed that they were a hot spot for immigration system abuse, especially marriage fraud. Officials didn't name a specific group, but the Twin Cities have seen a substantial jump in Somali refugees, with more than 82,000 now calling Minnesota home. Minnesota has sizable immigrant populations from countries like India, Vietnam, and Mexico, but its Somali residents have been a flashpoint for years. So far, it's unclear how many people were detained in the recent operation. Based on the statement, there have been multiple arrests since the officials said that it was too early to say the exact number. USCIS Director Joseph B. Edlow said officers encountered blatant marriage fraud, visa overstay, people claiming to work as businesses that can't be found, forged documents, abuse of the H-1B visa system, abuse of the F-1 visa, and many other discrepancies. Edlow also said that our officers found indications of fraud, non-compliance, or public safety and national security concerns. What they found should shock all of America. Edlow believes that the operation was a success that could be rolled out in cities across the country. In one incident, investigators found a Kenyan immigrant who paid just $100 for a fake death certificate in his wife's name. This way, he could marry his way into the U.S. The trouble was, his wife was alive and well, and she was found with their 5 kids in Minneapolis. Edlow noted that the individual also has another wife in Sweden and 3 additional children with her. And another migrant found living in the Twin Cities was the son of a known or suspected terrorist on the no-fly list. He made numerous attempts to commit marriage fraud before being caught in the operation. Now he is in custody for deportation. And in another case, a man duped an elderly American woman into marriage. They've split since, but officials said she still fears that he will come back after her. Edlow said, "I want the American people to know that we are declaring war on immigration fraud. What has been uncovered by these diligent officers over the past 2 weeks, that's only the tip of the iceberg." The APEC summit in Jeonju, South Korea is scheduled to take place from October 31st to November 2nd. This was originally an unremarkable piece of news. However, due to one particular incident, everyone's attention was suddenly drawn to it. The South Korean government and media previously stated that Xi Jinping is expected to visit South Korea from October 31st to November 1st to attend the APEC leaders' informal meeting in Jeonju, and that he may hold meetings with South Korean and U.S. leaders. The Chinese embassy in South Korea had previously booked the entire Shilla Hotel in Seoul for the Chinese delegation during the APEC summit as part of preparations for Xi Jinping's visit to South Korea. But on September 27th, the Chinese Communist Party abruptly canceled the reservation at Seoul's Hotel Shilla. This move is widely seen as highly symbolic, as the 4th plenary session of China's 20th CPC Central Committee will convene 10 days before the APEC summit. This meeting was originally scheduled to take place last October. After being postponed for a full year, the date was finally announced. This also highlights the intense power struggles within the upper echelons of the Chinese Communist Party. Rumors have been circulating recently that Xi Jinping will be removed from office at the 4th plenary session. The cancellation of hotel reservations further corroborates this prediction. China canceled Xi Jinping's hotel reservation, which is an unprecedented move in Sino-South Korean diplomatic history. During past visits by Chinese Communist Party leaders to South Korea, the Shilla Hotel in Seoul had always been the preferred accommodation. However, Xi Jinping's visit to South Korea now appears to be proceeding as planned. On September 30th, South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that it is consulting with China regarding the schedule for Xi Jinping's attendance at the APEC summit in Jeonju, even though specific details have not yet been finalized. South Korean media analysis suggests that Xi Jinping may opt to stay at a local hotel in Jeonju, such as the Lohan Select Hotel. Or he may return directly to Beijing on the same day after attending the APEC summit to streamline security arrangements and itinerary. So this still indicates that China has scaled back the level of hospitality extended to Xi Jinping's visit. The Shilla Hotel had made significant sacrifices to accommodate Xi Jinping. It had previously announced that a national-level event would be held in early November. Hence, it unilaterally canceled 8 weddings involving hundreds of guests. This incident ignited public outrage in South Korea, with criticism directed at President Lee Jae-myung for his pro-CCP stance. The opposition party in South Korea, the People Power Party, seized the opportunity to fiercely criticize the government. Several lawmakers accused President Lee Jae-myung of relentlessly currying favor with the CCP, only to be met with a no-show. They mocked Lee's hotel economics proposal as a laughingstock, pointing out that the CCP canceled this reservation without paying a penalty fee. This not only infringed upon citizens' rights, but also damaged the Shilla Hotel's reputation. A South Korean media outlet reported that couples planning weddings are facing significant distress after being unilaterally informed that reservations were canceled with less than 2 months until their ceremonies. With invitations already sent to friends and family, the tight timeline for securing new venues has created considerable urgency. The People Powers Party lawmaker Ju Jin-woo commented on the incident via Facebook, saying, "The government actually pressured a hotel to cancel a wedding booked by a customer a year ago, something that should never happen in a free democratic country." Another People Power Party lawmaker, Sung Il-jung, criticized the hotel's cancellation of the wedding banquet as a waste of the young couple's time and a destruction of their once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Amid renewed protests from the South Korean public, the Shilla Hotel announced last weekend that guests may proceed with their weddings as originally planned. Have you ever imagined that one day a simple surgery, a course of chemotherapy, or even a minor infection from a cut could become fatal simply because there's no cure? This sounds like something out of a horror movie, but a recent emergency report released by the CDC is sounding the alarm. The report indicates that infections of a superbug known as the nightmare bacteria have surged by over 460% in the United States. So what exactly is this bacteria? The scientific name for this bacterium is NDM-CRE. It belongs to a group of bacteria that are resistant to powerful antibiotics. From 2019 to 2023, its infections surged by over 460% in the United States. The CDC refers to it as the nightmare bacteria, not only because of its high lethality and contagiousness, but also because the extremely limited options for effective treatment make it a challenge even for doctors. It produces an enzyme called NDM that renders carbapenem antibiotics completely ineffective against it, leaving few treatment options available. The CDC states that effective treatment options for NDM-CRE infections are extremely limited. Because this bacterium was previously uncommon in the United States, healthcare providers may easily overlook it. However, NDM-CRE poses a serious risk to patients, and it is associated with high morbidity and mortality rates. Even more concerning is that without proper infection prevention and control measures, NDM-CRE could spread from healthcare facilities into the community. The CDC states that healthy individuals typically do not contract bacteria such as CRE. However, certain groups, including patients who are undergoing long-term antibiotic treatment and those with weakened immune systems, are at higher risk. So why should healthy people also be concerned about the NDM-CRE virus? The spread of the nightmare bacteria is possibly a microcosm of the impending collapse of our entire antibiotic defense system. Many achievements of modern medicine are built upon the foundation that antibiotics work. All surgical procedures require antibiotics to prevent post-operative infections. Chemotherapy for cancer treatment severely compromises the immune system, leaving patients highly dependent on antibiotics to combat infections. Organ transplant recipients require immunosuppressants to prevent rejection, and antibiotics are their lifeline. Many premature infants also require antibiotics to survive the critical period. When antibiotics fail, all of the above medical procedures become extremely dangerous. Therefore, the CDC notes that antimicrobial resistance can affect people of any age, making it one of the world's most urgent public health issues. Moreover, this is not solely an American crisis, it's a global crisis. The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, the ECDC, warned on September 11th that the multi-drug resistant fungus is rapidly spreading in European hospitals. The ECDC stated the number of cases is rising and the scale of the outbreak is expanding, which leaves us in anticipation of breakthroughs in medical science beyond antibiotics. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family because everybody deserves to know the truth.